How's it going, everybody? Dave Meltzer here, finishing up the week here on Wrestling Observer Live. We've got Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, here for 2 hours. We're also going to be joined by Sheldon Goldberg, New England promoter, wrestling historian, wrestling writer, etc., etc. He'll be up in a little while. And, Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
How's the media?
The media?
The media. Every day, every news story starts in Seattle.
I have not even been following it today. I just totally gave up.
Oh, okay.
Although I did notice, I was flipping through the channels last night, and I can't even remember what show it was, but there was some comedy show, and they were totally making fun of the earthquake coverage up here. And I thought, there you go. At least someone else noticed.
Okay. Well, let's see. What else? SmackDown last night. I liked the show last night.
Yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah.
You know what I was surprised with one of the best things on the show, at least I thought, was Benoit and Eddie Guerrero having that argument.
Before the match?
Yeah, I mean, the way it started out, it was kind of like, this isn't too good, but by the end, it was like, that was really awesome.
Yeah. The weakest thing was the thing Waller scripted.
Oh, I know, that was
the thing in the ring. I mean, I hit that fast forward, and I just couldn't,
It was really bad.
I was in there, and I was just like, I'm bored with this. I want to watch something else.
I actually watched the whole thing. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
It was horrible. I mean,
yeah,
just the acting and the whole concept of it, and I was just sitting there going, they really just got to end this RTC thing. It's so dumb. I see absolutely no upside.
Well, they got the lawsuit, so they're not getting hurt that much by the guy anymore, but it's just, I mean, I just found it so boring.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing on the show I would say that about. I thought it was very, good show. Almost all the wrestling was real good.
Yeah.
Some stuff, some of the stuff was too short, but some of it, but
yeah, Rock and Regal was real short. I don't know if it was because he was still, his neck still bothering him or what, but.
Yeah, he's not 100% yet.
Yeah.
So, Angle and Austin was real good. They definitely turned the corner on the Angle personality.
Yes, they did. Yeah, it's kind of funny how they're mentioning in commentary, over the last week, and I'm thinking, you guys had so much time to do this, you gave him the title, and now you're feeling bad? Now you decide to do something?
Isn't it interesting?
What took you so long?
Isn't it interesting that he held the title for so long, and they made him, and as a champion, he was put in a position of not being a great champion, even though he had the ability to be a great champion. And then all of a sudden, to give him the character that would have made him a great champion, they start the day after, he's no longer champion.
Actually, I will go as far as to say that they gave it to him the SmackDown before. I think they kind of started then.
Okay, you're right.
But still, it's way too late. After 4 months.
Well, it's not too late. He's got a huge career ahead of him.
Oh yeah, but I mean, as far as doing it to give him some credibility at the right time, it was, why wait so long? I just don't get it. I kind of get it, but I kind of don't.
Yeah. Let's see what other stuff we have. Sunday.
Oh, by the way, for the first time ever, they started airing the thing with Rusty Tillman, and
it aired all the time. It aired all through the show on Monday too.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time that I actually started to watch part of it. I only watched 2 minutes, and as you know, I'm not a football fan, but I thought that was so stupid. So I fast-forwarded through the rest.
It's terrible, but I guess we'll see tomorrow night, what kind of audience it draws, if any.
None.
For the New York-LA game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I'll watch, I think I can't even watch that whole game. I'm supposed to go over some friend's house. I think I'm going to get through the first half, and that's about it. If I'm lucky. May not even get that. I got a lot of tapes to catch up on, too.
Mm-hmm.
Got New Japan pay-per-view, that Ohio Valley Big Show. So, it's not going to be high there on the priorities. SmackDown did a 4.5 rating, which is the same as it did last week, which actually is probably a little less impressive because Friends was in reruns, so they had a little bit easier competition. But they didn't go up, but Survivor went way up. In fact, let's see, CBS beat NBC last night, which is, I think, the first time NBC's probably lost a Thursday night in 50 years. I don't know, not quite that long, but in a long time. So we already mentioned that Dick Butkus will take Lawler's place. No one will miss Lawler in the XFL. They will in pro wrestling, though, but that's another story. 0-1 had a pay-per-view today at Tokyo Sumo Hall, sold out a crowd of 11,000. From what we understand, it was a really good show. It's the Shinya Hashimoto promotion. The key stuff, Kazunori Murakami beat Shinjiro Otani with a choke. Heard that was good. They did a big angle a couple days ago to build that match up at the dojo when Murakami showed up, and they got in a big fight. From Noah, Yoshihiro Takayama and Takao Omori beat Alexander Otsuka of Battle Arts. That Otsuka, we'll talk about him in a second, and Tatsuhito Takaiwa, formerly of New Japan, who's really still of New Japan, in a quick match, like 7-minute match. And then the main event, Misawa and Jun Akiyama beat Shinya Hashimoto and Yuji Nagata in 19 minutes and 10 seconds when Misawa pinned Shinya Hashimoto with a released German suplex. Heard it was a really good match. After the match, Naoya Ogawa came out and challenged Misawa to a match. And Misawa attacked Ogawa with forearms, and that's a match that will draw money. God, I hate to be Misawa. That guy doing all that shoot stuff, as banged up as Misawa is, but it's a money match.
Yeah.
And Kazuyuki Fujita ran in, and he and Jun Akiyama had a pull apart. And if anyone can get a good match out of Kazuyuki Fujita, it is Jun Akiyama, so it'll probably be really good. But I heard that the very much compliments on the booking, because when the show was over, they said that, let's see, people wanted to see Misawa Ogawa. I mean, they gave you a lot of stuff to look forward to. Akiyama Fujita, Nagata against Akiyama, did a lot of hot stuff. Misawa Hashimoto single match, which of course will be down the road. Hashimoto Ogawa, still more heat on that, which you can always do that match. I mean, that's going to end up being a legendary feud. And Ogawa and Yuji Nagata, which if nothing else, that's a great match. Any match with Yuji Nagata.
What's interesting is, I mean, with like New Japan sending guys away to supposedly, convince people that are in other groups so they can do the interpromotional angle down the road, they're actually doing interpromotional angles by sending these guys away.
Yeah.
So it's like great for business, both short term and long term.
Great for other people's business and their business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've got a lot of dome shows this year because it's the 30th anniversary of the beginning of the 30th year. I gotta get this right because I'll semantically get it wrong. The beginning of the 30th year of the New Japan promotion is, was it Tuesday? What day is the 6th? Tuesday, right?
The 6th?
Tuesday. Yeah. So that's the beginning where they have a show at Oda Ward Gym. So as part of their 30th year celebration, they're going to have a lot of dome shows this year. In fact, they're having one on April the 9th and another one on May 5th. So they need a lot of dream matches coming up because, them on this, just New Japan booking a dome and putting on a big show by itself is not going to draw anymore. So, I know they're trying to do Mark Coleman and Yuji Nagata on, at the Osaka Dome April 9th. And, I'm sure that some of these matches we've talked about, they're looking at it for the April and the May, dome shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're going to do more dome shows, I think, later this year. I think they want to do Sapporo Dome. I don't know about Nagoya Dome. I haven't heard. But very ambitious planning for this year. So, anyway, it's a good pay-per-view to look forward to when I can get a tape of this one, which will probably be in just a couple of days. Otsuka, what I was going to say about Otsuka that's so interesting is this guy, it's like he does shoot fights, gets pounded on, and he just comes back and does his wrestling matches like nothing's wrong. He did. Did you ever hear the story of, I'm trying to remember which day this was. I think that in one day, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about this, as far as the opponent. I'm not wrong about the story. He did a show at the Tokyo Dome. Okay, well, first of all, he set up the ring for a Korakuen Hall show at noon. So he got up like at 6 in the morning, or whatever it was. Yeah, 6 in the morning, set up the ring, did a tag match at Korakuen Hall, just regular pro wrestling tag match, did topes, everything, right? Comes back and does a shoot fight that night with Igor Vovchanchin at the Tokyo Dome.
Igor?
Yes. I think it was Igor. I could be wrong with the opponent.
That's a hell of a day.
It may have been Ken Shamrock. It was either Ken Shamrock or Igor. I forget which. Let's see.
Either way, it's a tough fight.
Well, he got pounded on in both of them. Ken knocked him out. Igor pounded him but never put him away. Yeah, I think it was Igor because I think it was the fight where he didn't get put away.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he went in there, and then he went in there and got pounded on.
Did he have to take the ring down after the second fight?
No.
That would have been okay.
Yeah. But, I mean, okay, so he does all that, and he gets pounded on for 20 minutes by Igor. Igor doesn't even put him away. And that was his day. And anyway, this time, he had that fight in the rainstorm Saturday night and got pounded on by Guy Metzger. He was bleeding like crazy. It was stopped on blood. And, here, a couple days later, he's out there doing pro wrestling matches again.
Just like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know. He's gonna end up with scrambled brains not too long if he doesn't have them already.
Yeah.
I mean, all that stuff, we talk about, it's like, wow, isn't that cool? You know what, though? It's not cool.
Not.
It's not cool at all, no. Let's see. There was actually an NHL hockey game, Game 3 of the 2000 Stanley Cup, did a 2.3 rating, so there is actually a number that the XFL has to try to beat this week.
2-3?
2-3.
I predict they'll do it.
I predict they won't, so we'll see. I've been wrong every time on my XFL predictions for ratings. Every single week. This was Jesse Ventura's quote yesterday. He's talking about listen to this. The media, okay, he blamed the media for the XFL ratings, okay? This is his quote. They got embarrassed again. They thought this was going to be football players hitting each other over the head with chairs. They thought it was going to be wrestling on the football field. Then when they found out it wasn't, they had to attack it and say it's not as good as the NFL. It's second-rate football. Okay, now what?
And that caused millions and millions of viewers, nearly 56 million at one point, I believe, to stop watching the games.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, now, okay. It's not as good. Okay, now when he's mad because they're saying it's not as good as the NFL, it's like it's not. Like if you're going to criticize someone, you got to criticize them for something that they said wrong.
Yeah.
So anyway, but when he was asked about the future of the league, he goes, "I don't know. We'll give it our best shot," which is that doesn't sound too confident.
It's got a lot of confidence there in that league.
Boy, there's been a lot of people being real confident of late in that. Let's see. Here is the poll for the best match of the year so far, starting in December. Why the year starts in December, don't ask me. Actually, it's because, basically it's because when I did the Observer newsletter, the awards were always come out in January, and the feeling is that, because when I started doing it, and even now, which is fair, is that people are usually several weeks behind on Japanese tapes, so therefore, to be fair, you cut it off December 1st. And also because the voting starts December 1st, so anything in the month of December would be unfair because most of the people voting weren't going to be voting on it. Let's say there's a big pay-per-view match like the Hell in the Cell match, as an example. Middle of December, half those ballots are in, and they didn't count it, so it's unfair. So that's the reason. So anyway, that's why it starts in December.
Was there a reason you didn't do the cutoff date January 1st?
Yeah, because then I'd have to have the awards issue in the middle of February, and then everybody else would already have their awards issues out.
Okay.
So you want to get the... Actually, PWI always had it first, but, those were all worked awards anyway, so I never considered that, important.
Uh-huh.
And actually, when you look at their awards, there's probably a good reason I never considered them important. Anyway, let's see. Top candidate for match of the year, Kawada and Fuchi against Iizuka and Nagata from December New Japan pay-per-view, 9%, which actually I think was the best match so far. Hell in the Cell, 5%. Shocked the hell out of me. 5%. That was a hell of a match to only get 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Benoit and Jericho ladder match, 36%. Helmsley and Austin from last Sunday, 45%. Kawada, Sasaki, Tokyo Dome, 5%. So that's that. Today's poll for the weekend is, what do you think about the WWF Jerry Lawler split? A, it's the best thing for the WWF. B, McMahon should call up Lawler and patch things up. Do not hold your breath, but if you think he should, you can vote it, but don't hold your breath waiting for it to happen. C, Lawler should call McMahon up and change his mind. Don't hold your breath on that one either, even if you think it's the best one. And D, Lawler should just forget the WWF and make a deal with WCW. Which may not be that easy either because they can't make deals today. Any thoughts on that?
I don't even know what I would vote for. I guess, well, I think they should just, actually I should go over our poll. Do you think Jerry Lawler and Cat will end up back in the WWF? Cooler heads will prevail and they'll both be back, 9%. Cooler heads will prevail and they'll bring just Lawler back, 41%. And Vince is way too stubborn to back down, so they're gone, 49.6%.
Okay.
So very few people think that Cat's ever coming back, basically.
Yeah, I don't think Cat's coming back either.
Yeah.
That'll be a tough one. So I would kind of agree on that.
And I was sitting there, I was trying to do, because remember we were talking about yesterday doing the poll for the website about who should be his replacement.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there trying to think of all these names, and it really struck me that they need to bring him back. I mean, either these names, there's no way they would ever do it, or I basically even ran out of. I had Bobby Heenan, Mark Madden, Joey Styles, Joel Gertner, Tom Zane.
Joey, but okay. Styles isn't going to be a color guy. So
yeah. That's why I told this whole problem with his poll. I was going, who could they really bring in? They
could bring in Bobby Heenan. They could bring in Larry Zbyszko.
Oops, I didn't put Larry on the poll.
Gertner's obviously not ready for that.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Let me see who else. They could bring someone from within, like, Michael Hayes.
Foley. Taz.
Taz will probably be announcing on Monday, although no one knows for sure.
Yeah. I mean, as far as Gertner, I think they should, if they really wanted to, eventually get Gertner in that spot, I mean, I would bring him in and have him do, like, just a Jack show or something like that. One of the pre-tape shows. And, try and do it live to tape. Do like 6 months just doing it like he's doing in ECW, then try 6 months live to tape, and then when he's ready, he'd be ready. But just to try and bring him straight into, like, a live Raw, there's just no way.
The other thing with Gertner, I don't know, appearance-wise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're kind of a stickler about that. I know some people who they considered and didn't, basically won't consider because of appearance. For years. They never gave Finkel a chance.
Yeah.
And Finkel was a better announcer than almost every announcer they had when he in the mid-'80s. I'm talking about. I remember, like, for whatever reason, somebody was gone and Finkel had to do a show, and I was listening to it, and it's like, he's better than all their announcers.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I asked about that, and it was just like, well, it's just not in the cards for Howard Finkel.
Yeah.
So and that's how they are.
By the way, I did get an email yesterday. The commentator, Heroes of Wrestling, Randy Rosenblum.
Oh, yeah, I got a million of those emails.
Oh,
yeah.
My God, that guy was hideous.
Yeah, he was.
He was not included on the list on the website, by the way, for possible replacements.
Well, it's because it's impossible. What about, I don't know.
No, Albano was not there either. Sorry.
Well, I cannot imagine them bringing him back. It would get a pop, but.
You really? I don't even know if it'd get a pop.
It would. Okay, only if it was in the right state. It'd have to be in the Northeast. If it was somewhere besides the Northeast, you're probably right.
Yeah.
But in the Northeast, it's like one of those names that, like, if you live in the Northeast, I think that, like, you're a kid, even if you never actually saw Albano in the WWF, it's like you heard the name. Like, it's like Bruno Sammartino. It's like you heard the name so much that you must think he's important.
Yeah.
But
it would have to be the right. I'm just thinking back to, like, remember when they, I think it was Howard Finkel, actually, came out to the Ultimate Warrior's music. And when the music started playing, everyone in the audience just sat there like, what the hell is this? Didn't even recognize the music.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the day when Hogan comes back, and they play his Real American music, and everyone expects Pat Patterson.
It's Pat Patterson, Jerry Briscoe.
Yep.
Yeah. I think if he comes back, they won't play that music. Again, who knows? Who knows with Hogan? Let's see. What about Howard Finkel? We just mentioned him. People are reading my mind now. Can you get him on the show? Let's see. As soon as we can get people from the WWF on the show, it's going to come down to the first request, either Kurt Angle, Christian, and Howard Finkel. Okay? Let's see. How about Jim Mitchell? That name's been bandied about. Don't know. I know the WWF is looking for new writers, in particular Paul Heyman. Do you know when they will be hiring more people up to the writing staff? Monday. I don't know. Whenever Heyman comes in. Let's see. What do you think of the chances of Eric attempting to sign Val Venus? He's the one guy who's not main eventing in the WWF that could have a tremendous impact on WCW with his all-around talent.
Signing him.
His contract's going to be up in, like, 100 years, right?
Well, he did get out of the RTC.
Yeah. Gosh, let's see. Whatever happened to Wendy Richter? Was her final match in WWF against Moolah a screw job? Yes, it was, and that's what happened to her. She was staying there in the gorilla position with Gorilla, ready to go to the ring. And the Spider Lady was in the ring. And the Spider Lady was, I don't even know who was playing Spider Lady in the house shows. But it was not Moolah. And God, who was, I don't even remember. So anyway, he hands her a contract and goes, sign it. You got to sign this contract. And she goes, I got to have my lawyer look at it. And then her match was like ready to start. Her music's playing. So she leaves. And she gets double-crossed and pinned. And when she comes back, it's like, well, I guess there's no contract.
I mean, think about this. Was that 88?
I think that was earlier than that. I think it was probably 80, I'm guessing 86.
Okay, 86. And Moolah is what, 74 now?
Something like that. Moolah's very old.
So she's like almost 60 years old.
Yeah, she was really old when she but it's sort of like you're just working a match and she just grabbed like an inside cradle and just held on tight and then just wouldn't let her go.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you're not really trying, you know what I mean? It wasn't like they had to shoot.
Yeah.
It was just like, they asked Moolah like, and Moolah's been in the ring for 40 years by then anyway, so she knew the tricks and the position. It was, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now what I think is very strange is Richter supposedly not knowing that it was Moolah the whole match. That's a little suspicious. Yeah. That part's suspicious.
Especially if the person that originally played the Spider Lady was nowhere near 60 years old.
No, she was probably like in her 20s or early 30s.
They just thought she didn't put on any lotion that afternoon.
No, she wore a whole bodysuit. You couldn't see her legs, her arms, nothing. I remember.
I still think that's kind of suspicious.
I thought that she didn't know Moolah was suspicious. The rest of the story, I mean, it's pretty much true.
I mean, half the time when someone's in a mask or in a body, just look at Ray Jr. Just looking at him, you could tell who it was. Imagine not only not being able to look at them and know, but actually be wrestling them.
Well, especially because Richter wrestled Moolah a million times. I mean, so many horrible matches, you would think she's like, walks up with her and go, I can smell it, it's Moolah, I'm having a horrible match tonight.
Not to mention calling spots in Moolah's voice.
Maybe Moolah disguised her voice. No, I believe me, I don't see how she didn't know it was Moolah. But as far as, at that point, maybe she should have I don't know. Nobody ever just walks out and says, actually, I should take that back. If it was Brody, he would have just walked out of the ring and left. Because he did that. One time in, Minneapolis? He probably actually did it many times. Just supposed to do a job, and there was an argument about it, and instead of getting double-crossed, figuring the double-cross was coming, worked a few minutes, and then just walked to the back.
Oh, there you go.
So, I don't think that, who knows? Okay. For you to file away in the useless information department, Viewer's Choice is still listing, Viewer's Choice Canada is still listing the ECW pay-per-view on March 11th, and the digital cable info for the show talks about top stars, Just Incredible, Rhino, and Jerry Lynn. And you thought Heyman was the only one in denial. From what I understand this is as of yesterday, Viewer's Choice Canada was planning on doing a replay of the January pay-per-view in that time slot. And I don't know what In Demand is planning on doing on March 11th, because they got it. Heyman hasn't told anyone he's canceling. He's gonna win so many brownie points with these pay-per-view companies by the end of this week. But I do know there were certain deadlines for pre-shows and stuff that he's missed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another deadline for saying who the production crew is going to be and location and stuff. And he missed that deadline too. But he actually has not canceled the show.
This is total stubbornness because, at the very least, why couldn't he just put together a history of ECW pay-per-view and just go, this is going to be the last one. It's going to be history of ECW, all your favorite stuff, on pay-per-view. People buy it.
Yeah, they would. And probably be pretty good, too.
He'd get the sympathy buys and everything like that, and it'd do all right.
The sympathy buys.
That's what it'd be, though. Really. I'm serious, because, all my friends...
Sympathy buys.
It was I can't remember when it was, but, it's probably about a year ago, there was going to be an ECW pay-per-view. And, usually we have a bunch of friends that get together at one place. And on this particular pay-per-view, everybody was feeling so bad this company was going to die that I had 4 friends buy it at 4 different houses to help the company. It was kind of strange. I was going, okay, well, your 4 buys aren't going to help, but still. Sympathy buys.
Not going to hurt.
Just like All Japan.
Goldberg. We got Sheldon Goldberg. Yeah, that's true. All Japan did have a month of sympathy business. But ultimately, now they're in the position they're in, though.
Yeah.
The sympathy just didn't last long enough. They tried to do that Sympathy Tokyo Dome, and it was a little ambitious. Sheldon, how you doing?
Good, Dave. Hopefully, now that I'm on, people will have a sympathy listen.
Let's see. This is more from Scott Keith. He goes, on the bright side, if I order the non-show, at least 22 hours for 3 hours of a blank screen would give me a better value for my money than the $25 I paid to watch the WoW pay-per-view. That's pretty good. Oh,
I don't feel sorry for anybody that bought that WoW pay-per-view. You didn't know it was going to be bad going in.
Yeah. Sheldon, did you buy the WoW pay-per-view?
Excuse me?
Did you watch the WoW pay-per-view?
I have it here on tape. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Okay.
And what are your expectations of this show?
Well, now that I've read what everybody's written about it, they're obviously not all that great, but, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, nobody expected to see, you know, nobody expected to see, like, an All Japan Women's show, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How come, now we're on the subject, how come, if WoW can get on the air, that somebody just doesn't put All Japan Women on the air? They got a great every time I watch that TV show, I mean, now, even after 10 years, you know, or actually 15 years I've been watching it, it still blows me away.
It was on the air in this country at one point in time.
Yeah, about 15 years ago it was on the air. Yeah, during the heyday, as a matter of fact.
You mean just TV or pay-per-view?
No, it was on weekly TV on...
the Tempo Network.
What?
It was on the Tempo Network.
Tempo, okay, that's right. Because I remember watching it. This was during the heyday of the Crush Girls and Duck Matsumoto.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I mean, as far as today, are you looking at like a pay-per-view or just TV?
Oh, TV. You can't get people to order a pay-per-view of a product they don't want or they don't know. It's just futile. I mean, I think you need to get, you know, and I don't think that there would ever be, I don't think there's ever going to be a demand enough to where an All Japan Women for sure could ever get a pay-per-view and have anyone actually, you know, buy it in any length of, you know, any great numbers. But I mean, it's just for something on TV, you know. I mean, it's
especially we were talking about yesterday, all the satellite channels.
I got 500 channels on my DirecTV right now.
Yeah.
You think that most of them aren't doing hash marks?
Yep.
So, I mean, it'd probably do a hash mark too, but what the hell? Just get the tape, put the tape on. I don't know. Sheldon, what's your, you know, they show soccer from every country in the world if you have enough stations, right?
Right.
I mean, I've seen soccer from Spain, I've seen it from England, seen it from Germany, Bundesliga, you know, so it's like, I know it's all there. So, you know, and there's a lot more fans of pro wrestling in this country than there are of soccer.
Absolutely. You think that if that were available on some level and marketed properly, that it would attract an audience, that they would at least get somebody watching, at least get an ECW-sized audience, if it was good enough.
Oh, it wouldn't even, I don't even think it'd be ECW-sized, but it'd be something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, in a country of this size, it just amazes me that there isn't more wrestling product of any kind, whether it's, you know, an All Japan Women or a Lucha product or whatever. It's just shocking to me that no one has really broken through and offered any sort of other type of product that's a competing product. And I think that has a lot to do with what people's image of wrestling is. People sort of lump pro wrestling into that WWF category. If you ask people what's pro wrestling, they're going to say, oh, WWF, and that's their vision of it. And anything other than it's going to be hard for anyone else to break through that perception of it.
Well, there is Lucha every Tuesday night at Dish, and if you live in the right cities that carry Galavision.
Yep.
So, I mean, that at least exists. That was one of the things that always surprised me is during those periods when wrestling was a real hot TV phenomenon. Like right now, it's kind of, without that question, it's one of its cooling off periods.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 years ago it was really hot, and then in the mid, what was it, like 85, 86? Remember when like there's a million wrestling shows in every market because you know, and you know, it was just a hot thing again.
Absolutely.
I was always wondering, you know, why, and especially in the mid 80s, because in the mid 80s Japan wrestling was really good, and I was, you know, why somebody instead of putting on you know, one of those, you know, I don't know, rinky-dink wrestling shows, you know, would just not try to bring something like that in. I mean, it was never really tried. And then in the mid-90s, again, when, or I should say a couple of years, not mid-90s, late 90s,
right.
When everybody was clamoring for wrestling product and there was so little that nobody tried something like that. You know, at least New Japan, because New Japan was still very strong.
Right.
What do you think we'll see first, like an independent wrestling channel, like, you know, just someone sets it up and just tapes from everywhere, or WWF doing the 24-hour WWF channel?
WWF doing the 24-hour channel.
Think so?
Yeah. They've always been at the forefront of technology and new things.
Well, I mean, that Fight Channel, you know, the thing is the Fight Channel idea, and I don't even know where that stands. I haven't talked to the guy in, God, it seems like 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his idea was to include, you know, pro wrestling, boxing, and I could see a Fight Channel where you include boxing, kickboxing, pro wrestling, shoot fighting, 24-hour channel, similar to Samurai TV in Japan,
right.
Perhaps beating WWF, but pure wrestling, where you would show old tapes and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could get, like, the Bill Watts collection of all those old Mid-South tapes and the Vern Gagne collection and all that, I mean, you could do it, and it'd be, I don't know how viable it would be, but, hey, there's 500 channels. How viable are all those? There's more than that now, probably, but how viable are all those channels?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sheldon, what's your thoughts as far as the current wrestling scene?
Boy, it's funny. Every time I come on here, I always say that everything changes week by week. It seems to be a different business week by week. I only know what I've read about the WCW situation, the Fusion situation, and I sure hope that goes through for the sake of this business. It amazes me that. Well, I shouldn't say that it amazes me. I'd say that I'm surprised that there hasn't been some other strong contender to WWF. Maybe not even such a strong contender, but a serious contender, I guess I should say. Be it another independent promotion or just somebody putting up some kind of money for some kind of venture that would have some sort of impact on the national scene. And I don't think that it's going to be too long, maybe a couple of years before something like that comes about from somewhere, because the market is so wide open for it. But it's really you think about it, and on the national level, it's really such a scary time in a lot of ways because.
If you're a wrestler.
Excuse me?
If you're a wrestler, it's a scary time. Unless you're a top guy in the WWF, I think unless you're one of the top half of the WWF roster,
mm-hmm.
you got to be uncertain because the bottom half, if something happens to WCW, the bottom half of the WWF roster is in jeopardy. Most people in WCW are in jeopardy except for, a few guys that are, Booker T and Bill Goldberg. I'm sure that they're fairly safe, but most of the rest of those guys are not safe at all. And then,
right.
So and then, when they're not safe making this, the same kind of money.
Right. But, I think even WWF has to be a little bit scared, too. And the reason I say that is that, a certain measure of competition in the marketplace is good. I mean, they need other things that are similar to them in the marketplace, even if they're not as big and even if they're not on the same level playing field, just to have talent in the pipeline for anyone, anywhere. The fact that there was an ECW, I mean, so many of those ECW guys over the years went on to bigger and better things, so to speak. Now, the independent promotions, by and large, there isn't an independent promotion in this country right now that has the resources and the media exposure to really be a factor. And sure, there's groups that put on good shows and that turn out good people, but the only way that you're really going to make someone ready for that big national stage is if you have that constant media exposure week by week, and if you have, if you're running a circuit of venues, even if it's a small regional circuit, because it's working and being on television and doing it week by week, that is the difference between just being able to go out there and do the moves and really being a professional wrestler in the polished sense of the word.
I was going to ask you, do you think, I was talking to Bruce Mitchell last night, we were basically talking about the future 1 year from now of wrestling, and it's going to be completely different than it is now, because God knows it was different a year ago.
You bet.
It's probably going to be different in 2 weeks, but a year from now, if there's someone to challenge Vince McMahon, or I would say challenge him, because that may even be too strong of a word, but another company coming in, attempting to be a viable national company,
right.
Okay? Would you try to do a product like Vince McMahon or try to do a product totally different from Vince McMahon?
I think if you're going to be successful at this, you have to do something that is yours, whether it's the production approach to it, whether it's the stylistic approach to it. You've got to do something that's uniquely you. If you try to imitate someone else, if you try to imitate the WWF product, all you're going to be is a pale imitation. You've got to do something that's yours and nobody else's, whether it's the specific talent that you use, whether it's the style, whether it's whatever it is, it's got to be yours. And I think that people, and I'm, putting my money where my mouth is because I'm out there trying to do something myself. I think people want an alternative. I'm not trying to say that I'm going to be competing with Vince McMahon. I'm not saying that my company or whatever I do is going to be on the same level nationally as WWF or WCW or anyone else. All I can do is try to go out and put out the best product I possibly can, try to develop a fan base, and try to build it up little by little. And in thinking about it, you have to think of different ways to accomplish your goal. You've got to figure out different ways to be different from everyone else. And maybe that means you work with people from overseas who might want to get into the American market in some way on a small level. Maybe it's you talk to people in other industries that might be able to help you, such as Internet-related industries that might do something that is somewhat similar to what you're doing wrestling-wise, but not quite the same. But it's complementary to what you're doing on a business level. So I think the person or persons who are going to succeed are the ones that really think about it and look at it and not try to imitate what's out there, because fans won't buy it. Fans won't buy a weak imitation. Fans want to buy something good. And just give it your best shot and hope you can put together the resources and be innovative enough and good enough quality-wise to make it work.
I think the important thing is you have to be able to compete, like, visually. I mean, if you have, it doesn't matter what your product is, but if you're going to go out there and try and, I guess, compete with Vince McMahon or be number 2 or whatever, you can't go out there with, like, really bad second-rate production. Mm-hmm. And I think if there was a group that had the money to have great production, I don't really know what kind of product that they should do to be successful. So I think that what has to be is a group that has enough money to be able to experiment, mm-hmm. and if if something doesn't work, try something different. That's why I'm worried with the whole fusion thing. It's like, I mean, ideally, if that thing fell through and WCW were kept alive by Turner and they decided, look, we're going to keep this thing alive and we're going to do whatever we can. We'll put some more money into it. We'll cut some corners. We'll fire some people. We'll hire some new people. If that were going to happen, I would much rather see the fusion deal fall through than succeed, because Turner just has so much more money. Yeah. I mean, it's just going to be whatever company can try to beat these stats.
That's not going to happen, though.
If that's the case and it's got to be fusion, then they're going to have so much trouble.
Yeah, they've already tried to do it from within, and they can't do it. They don't have the people that have the wrestling savvy to be able to pull it off. Eric Fisher,
this fusion.
Yeah, I'm talking about Turner. Turner's already shown from within that they can't do it.
Yeah, but this fusion.
But Turner at least was successful during that period where they had Bischoff in charge, for that brief period where he was just hiring everybody in. I mean, it wasn't anything that Turner had to worry about at the time. They got somebody that, at least for a little while, knew what he was doing, and he made it successful.
Right.
And, with Fusion, if they have money to last a year, if they have to turn around within a year, that's just not enough time.
And I don't know all the particulars of the deal, obviously, but who knows what they're saddled with? I mean, if you're buying a company, it's like I was having a conversation with someone about why Vince McMahon didn't buy ECW, and the short answer that I got,
$7 million debt.
Excuse me.
$7 million debt.
That's right, and if he wanted,
that's the reason.
He can get all the talent without having to saddle himself with the debt. And the question is just a name and old tapes worth it? And the answer to that is no.
Well,
maybe
not obviously not to Vince, because Vince doesn't even market his own old tapes.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's right.
So why would he want to market Paul Heyman's old tapes?
Absolutely. And maybe the same question has to be asked about WCW. Is the name worth saddling yourself with all the obligations and the talent?
Well, I mean, the whole key of why they're going to buy this rather than start their own thing from scratch is it's probably not as much the name as Monday and Wednesday primetime television, which is a great starting point.
True.
I mean, they've got the one thing. If someone was going to start up, and this is like if I had like one major bit of advice for people who would start up, because I've seen it screw up with the XFL, and I've seen it screw up with Roller Jam and a lot of other places, is do not go on TV for 18 months do not rush yourself on TV. Go around, go in these little cities and draw no people, okay?
Right.
But get your people experience, and then when you're on, and make sure when you're ready to be on TV with a product that people want, that it's a good product.
Absolutely.
Then go on TV rather than go on TV and then do this XFL thing. We're a work in progress, because once you go on that first week with big publicity and everyone sees you and they decide they don't like you, you're doomed, and there's very little chance of a comeback. If you go in there and people are blown away with a good product, you're in a lot better shape.
Absolutely. I can't agree with that more. That's why in my own little local situation, we haven't done cable access or anything like that, because we don't want to do it wrong. We just want to, get to if it takes us a year, if it takes us 2 years, that's fine. But in the meantime, there's other ways to try to build a fan base and try to get ourselves to a point where, we've developed something, than going right on TV right away. So
I'm going to get to a couple of emails here. This is let's ask some questions here. Let's see, what do you think will be the end result of this Jerry Lawler thing? He's either going to end up in WWF or WCW. I don't know which one. He's not going to end up without a job.
I'd say he goes back to WWF.
Okay. Do you think WWF will bring in Jesse Ventura about... Jesse Ventura, let me say this, because the name has come up. Mm-hmm. No way. There's no way that Jesse Ventura will be coming in. I mean, he could never... it just can't be done.
Right.
Whether he would want to or not. I mean, he can justify going away on Saturday because it's a weekday. He cannot justify leaving Minnesota every Monday and Tuesday to do pro wrestling. I mean, he'd be, aside from the fact he'd be roasted for deservedly. It just ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's something here. What is the most ill-advised face and heel turn of all time?
Goldberg.
Yeah. Goldberg a heel turn, face turn. Probably any time they ever tried to turn Rick Rude face. Rick Rude was one of those guys where I don't know. They never really. I guess in ECW they tried to make him a face, and people kind of liked him. But Rick Rude was one of those guys to me that just couldn't be a baby face, because you just looked at him. When you look at him, there was something about him where you just didn't like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. When are we going to see a Sting return? Good question. Hopefully not Monday. Will Survivor Series in Montreal work or a shoot?
Work.
What do you mean?
I'm kidding.
What are you talking about?
That question will be asked forever.
Okay. Put it this way, Bret Hart was not in on the storyline. Okay? Shawn Michaels may have been in. The more I think about it, the more I think Shawn Michaels probably wasn't in on it either. But he might have been. I'm not sure about Shawn Michaels. I don't know. The Wrestling with Shadows was not a made-up movie, put it that way. Let's see. Spider Lady was Lisa Sliwa. Lisa Sliwa was like in her mid-20s, and she was a model. That'd be pretty difficult to compare her to Moolah. I mean, when you locked up and go, this is not Lisa Sliwa here. How long do you have to watch a TV show to increase a rating? It depends on what you mean by increase a rating. To increase a rating by a tenth of a point, that would be about... a tenth of a point would be 80,000 homes for 120 minutes. Okay? So that's what a tenth of a rating point equals. I heard if you lift weights and your muscles are sore, it doesn't help you. Depends on... What is that?
You should be calling it the Big Show. Is that the health and fitness show?
Calling Lizzie fit or something. No, it depends. That's not, as a blanket statement, that's untrue. What's the reason Phil Mushnick hates Vince McMahon? Is it because he stole all of Sam's talent? It's pretty clever. Aside from the fact that Sam and Phil are totally unrelated. I guess the main reason would be that Vince filed a lawsuit against Phil Mushnick that was totally unsubstantiated. So that'll make you hate someone. Let's see. For Sheldon, I heard of NECW playing a tournament with international junior heavyweights. Anything to that?
Possible. If not in May, then sometime within the next year. Absolutely, we're going to do that.
This is from Tom Ryan, who goes, after watching Matt and Lita against Crash and Molly, I demand that you and Brian retract your statements. This was Brian's statement, by the way, but that Trish is a better worker than Lita.
I refuse.
I refuse because you know what, on the basics in that match, Lita was not that good.
No.
No, I mean,
Molly did an awesome job with Lita.
Yeah.
And Lita did
Molly,
good bumps,
there's
she
no
could
question.
do a Hurricane Rana, but I mean, as far as basic actual wrestling, she's not very good.
Yeah. No, because I know when Lita was, like, doing the stuff besides the Hurricane Ranas, I was going like, you know, Ryan's right. She's really pretty bad. Let's see. Yesterday, I was watching World Championship Wrestling tape from the fall of 1983. Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, and the Briscoe brothers were coming in out of Atlanta from the Mid-Atlantic for the Omnicars to build up their arrival. They were showing Mid-Atlantic matches on TBS. In two of the matches, jobber Barry Horowitz was involved. Gordon Soley, doing the voiceovers of the Mid-Atlantic tape on both weeks, called him Bret Hart. That was the ring name he was using at the time. Did he ever wrestle with the ring name Bret Hart? Was Soley just confused by the real Bret Hart, who would also wrestle on TBS? No, that was when Barry Horowitz wrestled in the Carolinas. His ring name was Bret Hart, and Stu's son Bret, who was already wrestling at the time, because there was a lot of confusion. People actually thought that was Stu's son, and in fact it was Barry Horowitz. But that Bret outside of Calgary was not a big star. So, and then when Bret actually, the Mid-Atlantic tapes, this is actually an interesting story. The Mid-Atlantic tapes would air in Toronto because Frank Tunney, was Frank still alive or was Jack? Do you remember when Frank died by any chance, Sheldon?
Not off the top of my head.
I think Frank may have already died and it was Jack by then. Yeah. This is about 80. When we're talking about time frame, this is like 83.
Right, 82, 83, yeah.
Yeah, 83. So this is before Jack went with Vince McMahon, because that was about 85, I'm thinking.
Right.
I think it was in the end of 85, maybe end of 84, when Jack Tunney went with Vince. But Jack Tunney promoted Crockett stuff and did very, very well. Toronto was a big hotbed with Ric Flair on top and everything. And they would show the Mid-Atlantic television show, but it would be called the Worldwide Wrestling Show. It was called Worldwide. Actually, it was called Maple Leaf Wrestling when it was aired in Toronto. And they would have a couple of local matches with, Dewey Robertson and Billy Red Lions and the local guys, and mix it in with the Mid-Atlantic shows with Steamboat and Youngblood and Ric Flair and those kind of people. Mosca was a local guy at the time. And they brought in Bret Hart from Calgary and made him wrestle under the name Buddy the Heartthrob Hart, because Bret Hart was a television jobber name.
How about Bret Clark?
That's only when Buffer announced it. There was wrestling on... Okay, let me just get this one thing and then we'll go to a break. There was wrestling on WF last night, really, because all I saw were skits. A 2-hour program with 5 matches. None of them went longer than 5 minutes. Okay. See, you can't be writing these letters unless you know what you're talking about. The Angle match with Austin was a lot longer than 5 minutes. I think it was close to 10. So, see, now I got to throw the letter away. I was going to read the rest of it. You could say only one match had any length of time, but you can't do that. A lot of Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels emails. You know, we hadn't got them for a while. The Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels thing. I almost am afraid to bring it up. If you want to know what happened, serious, the March 17th and 24th and December 1st issues of 1997 of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, you will hear everything virtually you ever would want to know about that situation in full detail, with the exception of the conversation between Bret and Vince. And I actually got that, and I wish I remembered the date off the top of my head, but it was in December 1998 issue of the Observer. I got the whole conversation before the match in Montreal between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It's in December 98, yeah, because it was a year later when I put the transcript in.
Okay.
It was coincidental with the coming out of the Wrestling with Shadows movie.
Yeah. I hope you have plenty of those issues, because you're going to be getting a ton of people requesting them.
Okay, I mean, but seriously, I got, it's all there. In fact, there will be a book someday, and it will have everything that happened. I'm going to have to write a book on this someday, I know it. But actually, Bret Hart's going to write the book, but Bret only knows some of the story. He knows a lot of it, actually, but there's stuff that he doesn't know as well. Let me see. From someone who goes, do you really believe Bret was smart enough to wear a wire in his meeting before the match? Yes, he was, because he did.
Yeah.
And you notice the camera never went to Shawn Michaels when Bret confronted him after the match. Actually, the camera did. It just didn't air. I know, like, when we'll have Jeff Merrick on the show. Who's Jeff on? Jeff's going to be on not next week, but the week after. Jeff has actually seen all of the footage, including Undertaker patting on Vince's door and all the stuff that was edited out of Wrestling with Shadows. including Shawn Michaels actually crying in the dressing room, which really happened. So anyway.
Actually, you know what? I don't even know the website address, but whichever website has the Wrestling with Shadows video, I think the first article that you wrote with like the timeline.
It hasn't, but it was in the old Wrestling with Shadows website, which I think doesn't exist anymore because the company's out of business.
Okay.
But they edited that a lot because they changed my story to fit with the movie.
Oh, they did?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I read it and I
retract the plug that I just gave.
Yeah, I mean, I had a story and I read it and it was like it's not so much different that I was ever mad about it, but it was like, they have a movie story and there's, and it wasn't wrong. It was just, Paul J and I had slightly different ways of viewing the same facts, and he had his view was very, very pro Bret. Mine was certainly not anti Bret Hart. I think that Bret Hart was a victim of circumstances. But for those of you who will never be convinced that Bret Hart wasn't involved in the setup of this, I only have one thing to say. How come Bret Hart is not working for the World Wrestling Federation, feuding on television right now with Vince McMahon? In fact, why wasn't he 2 years ago or a year ago? And the fact that he isn't, I think that should tell you all you need to know. Because how much money is there to be made off of that, and why isn't it done if they were working together? Why would they both walk away from all that money?
And he had the option to leave WCW at one point and go back.
Well, he signed a renewal. They ended up firing him anyway, but he had signed a second contract with WCW.
Yeah.
Why would he have done that if him and Vince were working together? When he could have come back. And now, after he was fired by WCW, why is he not in the WWF?
Yep.
So if anyone can answer that question, answer it. Anyway, Dante, you're first up. Dante is not. Okay, let's go to Scott. I think you didn't like that one. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
I've been a fan since 1988.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're here.
I've been a fan since 1988, and I have to say I am disgusted with all the things that have transpired on Tuesday afternoon out there in Tucson, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe all that's happened. Jerry the King Lawler was an excellent person. He's been with the WWF since 1993, and I think that the owner of the company should have done a little bit more for him. What do you think about that? What do you have to say?
I agree.
I just cannot believe that it happened like that.
I agree that McMahon should have at least made more of an attempt. I mean, but if you know McMahon, it's not a surprise.
Especially we've just been talking about Montreal.
Absolutely,
yeah,
that's true.
Right. Like Montreal's a perfect thing.
Think about that.
Think about that. I mean, Bret Hart was with the company for 13 plus years.
Yes, he was.
And was the top guy in the company for many years. And when he left, it was like, boy, he tried to ruin his career basically.
Yeah, he did.
And, well, he did. It actually backfired. It's just that the people who he went to didn't know how to take advantage of it. He actually did Bret a favor with that thing, not knowing it. Because it really did backfire, because people noticed it. But then when he went to WCW, they didn't know how to pull the trigger on something that was handed to him. So I blame that on WCW, not Vince.
That's true as well.
As far as Bret's career.
Yeah. All right there, my friend. Thanks a lot for your time.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Let's go to Jason.
Hello?
Hello, Jason.
Am I on?
Yep.
Yes, you are.
Okay. I've got a question for you. A friend of mine and I are having a debate whether this wrestler existed by the name of T.L. Hopper.
Yeah, it was Tony Anthony. Yeah, he definitely existed.
He definitely existed.
The plumber.
What was the reasoning behind that gimmick? I mean, was it something?
Everybody was like out of their mind that year that was involved in WWF booking.
Remember there was and the Goon.
The Goon and the Diesel and Razor and the Double J fakes.
Yeah.
That was a real trying year for that company.
What happened?
What happened after?
Was that right when Russo came in?
No, actually Russo came after this. This was right before Russo. This was when they hit the bottom and Russo came in. And actually, believe it or not, saved them from this. What a strange world this is.
It is.
He did. That's right. But yeah,
I have another question for you. Who was the first person that you know of, anyways, who used the green mist that the Great Muta uses. Was that the Great Kabuki? Was he the first person?
The first one I remember would be Kabuki. Sheldon, do you remember anyone before Kabuki?
No, Kabuki would be the one.
Now, I got a question. Do you remember the original Great Kabuki, Ray Urbano, not Aki Hisamura? I remember when I was...
but I never saw him.
Okay, I remember as a kid the Great Kabuki, so this is, well, I should know him because like my best friend's dad, or one of my best friends growing up dad was the Great Kabuki. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember him doing the Green Mist. But he may have. But I do remember, obviously, Kabuki doing the Mist, on Georgia Championship Wrestling and in World Class in the early 80s, predating Muta by many years.
Yeah, that's what I figured, that he was probably the first. And my last question that I have, actually for all three of you is, what do you think, now that Jerry Lawler is out of the WWF, what do you think about replacing him with Al Snow?
That name has come up so many times. I don't know.
To me, Al Snow is completely underused, and I think there's a sense of humor there that just can be exploited, and they haven't done so.
The Al Snow Mick Foley stuff was tremendous.
Yeah.
Remember Al doing a lot of commentary. And if he has, it really hasn't, stood out to me.
All I remember is, do you know who was unbelievable? Now, it was when Regal was doing the commentary of Al Snow matches that was the unbelievable, not vice versa. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, some of Regal's commentary was really good. If I didn't like Regal so much in the ring and backstage, I'd vote for him.
Yeah.
Regal might be a good choice.
I think that
if they pick Regal, though, that would take away from his main event push that he's kind of receiving.
Yes, it would.
Maybe
because doing all that commentary, there's just so much.
Although that wouldn't fix their immediate problem, but that would provide something for the future.
What did you say? I missed what you started with that.
I just said that maybe in the future, in 1 or 2 years from now, that's something Regal could do. Although it wouldn't fix their immediate situation, it's definitely a solution they have for down the line.
It could be, let's say 4 or 5 years from now, when it's time for Regal to slow down, as an active wrestler.
Right.
That wouldn't be the worst idea.
What's interesting is look at all the debate about a WWF broadcast team.
Yeah.
And then look at WCW and the fact that it's like an afterthought to them. Should we have a 3-man crew this week or 2? Let's just put Tony in there. Let's put Stevie Ray. Let's put Hoovy. Even though Hoovy was
just
entertaining choice for a while.
It was great for one show.
Brian brings up a good point in Stevie Ray. When he first initially started, I actually I liked him, and I know actually Brian did as well. And as time went on, he just got
downhill.
worse and worse by the week. And my question is, do you think that if he wasn't working alongside Tony Schiavone, if he was working with a better team, he would be able to improve?
Maybe. A lot of this comes... Everybody can be clever until they run out of their lines. Harvey Whippleman, who used to be a manager at Downtown Bruno, when he first came to Memphis, mid-'80s, he was, had worked Pittsburgh Independence and nothing else was his first territory. And for the first month he was down there, I thought he was like the greatest manager, the greatest prospect that I'd ever seen. And then after a month, he'd used every one of his lines, and he never came up with a new one, and he actually turned out to be a pretty crummy manager in the long run. And maybe Stevie Ray was like that. I never was a big fan of Stevie Ray even from the beginning, although some of the things he said was kind of cute. But then after a while, I don't know. Remember that one interview with Paige and Nash? What a horrible bit of TV that was.
Yeah, that was just...
I was just waiting for the lights to crash, actually on the air, instead of just in the background and Nash turning his head.
Oh, my God.
You talked, I guess it was yesterday, you talked about embarrassments to pro wrestling. That was definitely one of them.
Oh, with all the Scott Hall bleeps?
Yeah.
If that thing ever made the air. On a taped show.
Yeah, that was, you definitely didn't want to sit down with friends of yours that aren't wrestling fans and watch that, and they would just be laughing at you.
Actually, they'd have sympathy on you.
I will admit I laughed really hard watching that. Yeah. In fact, I watched it 3 times.
Yeah.
It wasn't good for the company,
because I couldn't believe it the first time.
It was pretty damn funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I thank all 3 of you gentlemen for your time, and keep up the good work.
Okay. All right, this is Monday's Nitro. Let me see. What do we got here? Sean O'Hare is going to battle Lex Luger in singles competition.
Oh, my
That's going to get him over. They haven't figured it out. They haven't figured it out. I'm so upset. Even if he pins him. Palumbo pinned him. It didn't help. Okay.
Especially the way it was put together.
Yeah. Well,
maybe they'll bring Arn Anderson back and he can book the same match and they'll suspend him again.
I mean, I understand storyline-wise, because the rest of the building up to the pay-per-view. So that, it does make sense in that regard, but the problem is that Luger doesn't put people over in a good way. Many wrestling insiders have predicted that Sean O'Hare will be the next Bill Goldberg. Well, that's a way to doom him for sure. Don't ever say that. Keep it on the internet. Don't ever say it on television. The minute you say it on television, he's done. Air Paris and AJ Styles against Primetime Il Skipper and a mystery partner, who I believe is going to be Kid Romeo. It's a match. Shane Helms and Chavo Jr. Non-title match for the pay-per-view, so Shane can beat him. It's a great match. Good job. Good. Conan and Lance Storm. And that's the only stuff that's announced so far.
Wow.
World War Animal will be there, too, in a tag team, no doubt.
With the Cruiserweights, I'm sure.
Let's see. Wade Taylor is reporting that the WOW pay-per-view got 6,000 buys. What does that translate to in terms of a buy rate? Let me see.
I got my calculator here. Give me the numbers.
Okay. He previously reported that Sin drew half the buys of the WOW pay-per-view. Is this true? Well, that's absolutely not true. The WCW pay-per-view did a hell of a lot more than 3,000 buys. Okay, 6,000 buys would be, divide 6,000.
Okay.
Divided by 42 million.
7,000.
No.
Okay, hold on. All right, 0.00014.
Ooh.
Okay, let me do this. Okay. Okay, a 0.1 is 42,000 buys. A 0.01 would be 4,000 buys. So it's 0.014.
0.014.
Okay. 0.014.
Ouch.
As opposed to 0.14, which is probably what the WCW Super Brawl did in the neighborhood of. It's from Adam, who goes, can you tell me how Bob Mould got involved in writing for WCW and why did it end? Bob Mould, who was a pretty well-known cult music figure. In fact, he was in the band Husker Du and everything like that. He is a long-time wrestling fan. There are people who I know that know him. I've met him, but I really don't know him well, although he subscribed to The Observer probably for, over 10 years. They said he has a very good wrestling mind, so anyway, they brought him in. He was friends with Gary Juster, and so he would have been brought in after the first Russo reign ended, so that would have been early last year. And he may have even been brought in before that. I think he was actually brought in before Russo came in the first time, and then Russo came in and he had nothing to do and he quit. And then he came back when they dumped Russo, they brought Bob Mould, said he wanted to come back because he couldn't work with Russo, because Bob Mould's ideas were formulated by watching a lot of New Japan tapes, which obviously someone whose ideas are formulated by that is going to have a hell of a time working with Russo. So he came back, and he was there until Russo came back, and then when Russo came back again, he was gone again. So that's what happened with Bob Mould, and that's how he got involved. And I don't know if he would have been good or bad. I mean, as I said, people who have spoken to him that I know were very impressed with Bob Mould's knowledge of wrestling and how he handled himself in the meetings, but he never had any real power, and, never, so you just don't know. Mm-hmm. Next week on the show, Monday, Jim Cornette. Wednesday, we are going to have a taped show. I'm going to be gone Wednesday. We're going to air the show from last Friday. If you did not hear the show, I highly recommend you listen to the show because Brian was only the fourth funniest guy on the show, and that's very rare, with maybe third. I don't know. Heenan was the funniest, and Don Fry was pretty darn close. Frank Shamrock's last line was pretty good, too. So those were the guests. And Brian was pretty good on that show.
It's just the fact that Frank Shamrock started barking when he walked into the room. It's points right there.
Well, the last line about Heenan and his brother, that was a classic. That was better than anything Heenan said. Anyway, but Brian was really good on the show, too. That one about when he asked when Don Fry was challenging all the Shamrocks to a fight, and he go, "What about Bob?" That was so funny. By the way, we're going to have Ken Shamrock on the 16th, right before he leaves for Japan for the Pride show. And also the Pride show, Ken Shamrock, Igor Vovchanchin, Kazushi Sakuraba against Vanderlei Silva, and Renzo Gracie against Dan Henderson as the top 3 matches. That will air on pay-per-view, if you have a dish, on April the 6th, I believe is the date. So it's going to air in the United States as well. We'll talk about that. It'd be better if it was on television, but that's another story. Let me go through some of these letters. What, in your opinion, does Big Show have to do to get over? I think he's got great fire as a babyface, so if they give him a big push, and he's got the size, but it would be nice if he lost some weight. I guess they've given up on that one, though. It's just futile. Who was the masked superstar? Of course, that's Bill Eadie. Is it true Greg Valentine once held the WWF heavyweight title? The short answer is no, but they did an angle in New York where they held the title up with Bob Backlund and Greg Valentine, although it wasn't recognized in either city. But Greg actually never won the title. Have you heard if Brian Christopher has also quit? No, Brian Christopher is staying. What will the WWF do when the fans chant "We want Waller" on Monday? They won't, so I don't think they need to worry about it.
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's
not
highly
impossible.
unlikely.
It's not impossible because, I mean, they were chanting for Brett for a while there, too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they'll do. They may, the right thing to do would be to call him up. I'm not saying they won't. I don't know. What will happen to the WCW NWA tape library if the company sold to Fusion? Fusion will own it. Let's see. Why was the Gary Steele match on the 0-1 pay-per-view so terrible? I didn't see it, but I just heard it was terrible. Let's see. Now that time has passed, do you still feel how Hogan left WCW was a work? I actually can tell you that I know the whole story, and it was 80% a work. The part that was a shoot was maybe, if there was a part that was a shoot, it was that they didn't know Russo was going to cut the promo. Everything that happened in the ring, I will tell you absolutely, was a work. I know it was how it was set up. I mean, it was. Now we're going to have more Bret Hart stuff. Even though Bret Hart was going to WCW, I think that since he didn't want to lie down for Shawn, considering the screw job was away from the title stay in the WF and Bret to leave as uncrowned champion. That would have been... Okay, first of all, Bret was very willing to do a job. Do you want to get into this?
No, go ahead.
Some show we should actually just talk about the subject rather than do it and get it all out of the way. Bret was very willing to do a job, including to Shawn Michaels, as long as it was after Wednesday of that week, and he was booked. In fact, there was an agreement made. Bischoff agreed to it. McMahon had agreed to it. Bret Hart had agreed to it. That on December the 7th of 1997 in Springfield, they were going to have a four-way. It's going to be Undertaker, Ken Shamrock, Shawn Michaels, and Bret, and that Shawn Michaels was going to win that match and win the title, but Vince did what he did. Let's see. How about Jason Sensation? That's the best. That's a real good one.
Yeah.
Jason Sensation is working in Memphis. I have not watched Memphis tapes since he's been there, so I don't know. But I know someone who's very well respected in wrestling, who's also Brian's grandfather, who went to Memphis and came back and thought that Jason Sensation was like the greatest thing in the world, and that they should make him an announcer. In fact, a color commentator. So you're not alone in that thought. Let's see. I can recall, this was Shawn. I don't know if anyone remembers this, and it's not relevant to this discourse, but I recall a pay-per-view that Owen Hart did color on, and it was some of the most hilarious commentary I've ever heard. I remember that, too. But I guess it doesn't... let's go to Dan. Dan, what's up?
Hey, Dave. I want to talk about New England Championship Wrestling, but first let me throw out one other name for the Lawler replacement. Bruce Pritchard. Not his brother Love, but his Bruce Pritchard.
Well, he knows his business.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I liked what I saw of him in GWF.
Mm-hmm. He was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember him with Eddie Gilbert. Yeah, he was good.
All right. But this is coming in fame. I wanted to talk about New England Championship Wrestling. I saw the last show that you ran in Somerville.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great show.
Thank you.
I really... there's some of the guys there that I've seen before, seen on tapes or seen in NECW. I didn't really like their ring work, but they really... I think everyone who I thought needed work kicked it up several notches. All the matches on there were great matches, I felt.
Thank you.
And also I wanted to say thank you for bringing this, because I look around the indie scene that's around here, and there's a lot of garbage leagues or whatever name that you want to put on them. You are, and New England Championship Wrestling is doing wrestling, and I like that in my wrestling.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for everybody, really. All the guys who we have in the company really work hard, and I know I appreciate them. So it's nice to hear that people coming down appreciate them too. So thanks.
Yeah. Do you know what you're running up in Vermont yet, or?
I should have the card posted in the next 24 hours or so. We'll post the card on our website.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the main event is going to be Slick Wagner Brown, who just won the title at the last show against Jason Knight. That is going to be the main event.
All right. So I'm wondering if I should make the drive up from Boston to see it?
Of course you should.
I figured you'd say that.
Sure.
I was reading on a news board you were posting about April Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
How you're not going to use her anymore. So
right.
let me, if I can say. Go ahead.
Excuse me?
What happened?
We had laid out a scenario for her, in bringing her in. We talked quite a bit about what she would be doing and what she wanted to do, and she made it very clear to me that she did not want to be a valet, she did not want to be eye candy, that she wanted to get in the ring and she wanted to wrestle. At the same time, she felt that she wasn't ready to do that yet, and what we had done is we had laid out a scenario to her of what we wanted her to do and how we would get from point A to point B. And, we told her that, it could take as long or as short a time as she felt comfortable with. But what we wanted to do is give her the opportunity to get in front of crowds and maybe learn some of the things that you don't learn in wrestling school, like how to play to a crowd and some of the more psychological aspects of the business. And I guess she just didn't want to go along with a lot of the things that we wanted to do with her, and we sort of had a creative difference of opinion. And nothing against her. I certainly, she didn't leave on bad terms. We wish her the best and all that, but and she didn't want to do what we wanted her to do, and we just, I guess, agreed to disagree. Long and short of it.
Because I was wondering about the Robbie Ellis match that show, where you had the no DQ clause.
Mm-hmm.
It never came into play.
Right.
When that was set up, I was half expecting April to turn and give Robbie Ellis the win, setting up her sort of as his valet. And I was just kind of wondering, was that the original plan, or?
No. Actually, I'll tell you what the original plan was. The original plan was that we were going to pair her with Derek Destiny. Destiny was going to pursue her, and finally what it would come down to is that she would have challenged Destiny to a match, and Destiny would refuse to wrestle her, and the angle would be that Ellis and one other person, and we were thinking about Kurt Adonis, would come out and attack Destiny, and then April would save Destiny, and then they would be a tag team, and that's how we were going to get her in the ring. But
it would have worked. I think it would have worked well with Derek Destiny's gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shame that didn't come off.
Well, these things happen. Sometimes real life and things take precedence over the best laid plans. You just try to make the best of what you have.
Yeah, I fully understand that you get put in these positions as a booker because you got Maverick Wild, you've got there's someone there who I think is ready for the taking for anywhere, but I understand that he's got his conflicts too. There's someone you should be using, and you are using his where you can.
Yep.
He's a great talent. Anyway, thank you very much. I just wanted to get in and talk about ECW a bit. Right?
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay.
Thanks.
I got a question for you, Sheldon.
Sure.
What do you think of China's book?
Oh, I didn't buy the book. After I read about what she said about Kowalski, I didn't buy the book. However, I was in a bookstore last week, and I thumbed through the book, and I was reading at some of the stuff specifically where she talked about Kowalski. And I'll tell you, I was so soured on the idea that she would have any sort of meanness towards him. I've known Kowalski for a long time, and he's told that story about China and how she got into the WWF for a very long time. So I believe his version of it. I didn't have any personal knowledge of what went on, and how, whether what Walter says is the truth or not, but I can tell you that he's told that story for a long time, and I have no reason to doubt him as far as that goes. What I was really disappointed in is that here is someone, and the things that she said about him were just so mean. I mean, it was almost like she was trying to be funny, but it came off as being something just totally mean, It just made me so sad to read that, not just for Walter, but for her. I mean, here's a person who, one of the things that I learned a long time ago about professional wrestling is that nobody makes it by themselves. Nobody in this business gets any place alone. Whether you're in a match, you're never in a match by yourself. You never do anything in this business without someone opening a door for you or someone allowing you to do your best. And it's very sad that here is someone who's become very successful, and doesn't really acknowledge the person who opened the door for her. I think that's just shameful. I was very, very disgusted. I wouldn't pay money for the book. I was very, very upset about it, to be perfectly honest.
All right.
So,
actually, I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah.
This is from Brian. Remember what I was saying about Lawler and what you were saying about people chanting his name?
Oh yeah.
Well, you were right. I'll tell you why. This is on Jerry Lawler's website. It says, "Please show your support on upcoming WWF events. Chant King, Cat, and show plenty of signs." I think somebody knew something I didn't know there. And also, actually, this is funny in a way. Was it the day before yesterday when Lawler did his big thing, his big, rundown of everything that happened that we talked about. And at the end he said, please email the writers. Because he figures that those were the guys. There's Bruce Pritchard, Jamie, Bruce Gwartz. I don't even know what Jamie's last name is. But anyway. Anyway, of course they blocked their email address and changed their email address immediately because they're getting all that negative letters. And, that was a pretty cheap thing for Lawler to do. So Lawler is now telling everyone to please call and fax. He's got the numbers of...
Oh, no.
He's got their fax numbers. He's got the office. He's got... I don't know whose phone number this is. I don't recognize the phone number.
Hey, it's Vince's.
It's not... No, I know Vince's number. And it's not Vince's number. No, then he really wouldn't be back. They were asked...
Maybe it's Val Venus's number. Remember that one?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. What do we got here? The problem with people wanting to compete with WWF is that the lack of ability to integrate their new ideas with the things that make the WWF successful. For instance, the WWF is successful because of the story. Each wrestler, in one way or another, has relevance to the other. They pay off the things they start, big or small. Not
for the most part.
But for the most part, yeah. Yeah, the game in AAA, an Austin match. That was a great payoff, no doubt. Leading Dean Malenko. Yeah, and it was not even that bad. Stephanie and Trish. They did pay that off, and it wasn't that bad. But then they went one day too long. But they had something to do with it. But then that was different. If it doesn't work, they get rid of it, but they don't insult their fans as they do it. Wrestling, one word that everyone seems to forget is in the definition, TV has to be smooth and polished. And if someone brings down morale, you get rid of them. Well, they will do that, and
they did.
And they did. Got to give them credit for that. This is someone who is going like, have you heard any rumblings on either Reckless Youth or Low Key going to WCW? No, not at all. I do know. What about American Dragon? American Dragon's under developmental deal with WWF, so he ain't going to WCW. Let's see. What about Dragon Kid, Shima, or Ricky Marvin? None of them will be in WCW soon. Based on what I expect to happen, which can all fall through, in many ways, I would expect all of them to at least get the opportunity late this year. That may not happen. Again, it requires, obviously, Fusion buying it. It involves people being hired that I'm expecting to be hired. It also involves the company still being in business at the end of the year. And it also involves many, many things. But I think there's a pretty decent shot at all of those guys coming into WCW. A decent shot. Let's see. Let's go to Dave. Dave, what's up?
Not much. How are you doing?
Doing very good.
Did you get that thing I sent you?
Tell me, because I get things you sent me
I'm sorry?
every day. Which one?
The picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You see the cat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I really don't think that Jerry Lawler. I think people are making too big of a deal out of this. Like, I really don't think people tune into wrestling to see an announcer. If that were the case, I mean, Jerry Lawler was with the WWF in 1995 and 1996 when they had their problems. So I think people are making.
It's not. It's nobody expects the ratings are going to go down because of Jerry Lawler. Nobody tunes in because if it was just that, nobody would watch SmackDown because Michael Cole's terrible. But the thing is that
it'll hurt the quality of the product.
It hurts the hype because Jerry Lawler knows how to hype because he's got 30 years in the business of hyping, and knowing how to hype, and plus he's very quick-witted. So I think it hurts the product a little. I mean, it hurts the TV presentation.
I'm just afraid of seeing Lawler and Tony Schiavone together. I mean, if you look back at the history of announcers that have gone to WCW and look at where they were when they first entered and look at where they were when they left. It's
Jesse Ventura, Bobby Heenan, Mike Tenay. Yeah, you're
like
got
Scott
a good
Hudson
point there.
2 years ago.
Scott
I remember
Hudson.
he did that Nitro where he filled in for Tony Schiavone. I thought he was just excellent. Now I just can't even stand hearing this guy's voice.
Remember that when he filled in and he did so great, he did better than Tony, and then he never got to host it again?
Yeah. They even did an angle to get rid of him.
Yeah, they did well, he was only brought in so they could do that angle because Tony has the bad neck, and Tony wasn't going to take it was the Rick Steiner suplex, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason he was brought in was to do that angle, because he was willing to take the suplex. So that's and the fact that he ended up being good, it was irrelevant because he was only in there to get beat up and shoved out.
The thing is, I think it's even if the WWF product isn't exciting, I think it's the way it's worked out. I think you can get excited about it, but the WCW product, if I were an announcer, that'd be a tough job to get enthusiastic about that product. Do you think you could do that?
I don't think they do it.
They can't do it.
That's like, going from announcing WWF to announcing WCW, that's like going from eating at fancy restaurants every night to eating out of a gutter. I mean, that's going to be a huge drop-off, and I don't think he's going to be as good in WCW as he goes there, based on the product he's calling.
Well, if the product's the same product we've been getting for most of the last couple of weeks, I don't know if there's going to be an argument that you're right.
Contacted him?
What?
Do you know if Eric Bischoff has contacted Jerry Lawler?
I can't say I know, but logic would tell you that he has, yes. But I can't. I mean, I asked Lawler. He said no, it hasn't happened. But I got a sneaky suspicion. If it isn't directly, it has to have been indirectly. Everyone in wrestling knows how to get a hold of everyone, and everyone's got their little intermediaries.
The thing that's interesting is they just got rid of all that women, all those girls. Do you think that they're going to hire the cat?
Well, that's interesting.
I think they will, so they could get Lawler. But I mean, is that going to do anything for morale?
What will that mean for morale? Plus, here's another one. Okay, she goes there. If she really is a morale problem, and obviously there must be something, right? Or else they wouldn't have done that. The last thing WCW needs is someone with a morale problem, right?
And the one thing that I disagreed with when reading Lawler's statement is I really don't think of the cat as being a talent. She did that one nudity spot in Armageddon. Besides that, I don't think anybody really cared about her.
Well, okay, it's his wife. What's he going to say?
Well, you're exactly right.
He's going to preface the statement by going, the cat got her job because she's a pretty woman, and I asked Vince to give her a job, and they wouldn't give her any angles except for the ones I suggested and lobbied for, and they would finally do them. And then they stopped doing them, and I had to come up with new angles because nobody else was coming up with angles for her.
The way I look at the cat situation is, remember when Lanny Poffo was under contract at WCW to please Randy Savage?
Yes, and Horace Hogan too, although I think they finally cut him.
When did they cut him, actually?
Did he go like
2 years without ever working for WCW?
I think he worked like one dark match or something, yeah.
And he was a genius.
He really is the smartest man in wrestling.
No, I just had the right brother. That's all.
But the way I look at it is, the cat is if you have Lawler on your roster, the cat is worth having. But using the cat, I think that may be more of a negative than a positive.
I think it depends on the story. It's probably a wash. Maybe a slight
the thing is, I wouldn't have gotten rid of the cat, but I don't agree with Vince. I mean, I would take back Lawler but I would not take it back if Vince takes back the Cat and Lawler, I mean, that looks like he's backing down to an announcer. So what happens when
that's why it's going to be real difficult for that to happen.
I mean, do you think Lawler
not impossible, but difficult.
I mean, do you think he will go back? What if they were to up Lawler's contract and give him everything the Cat was making and add that to his contract?
I don't know. That would be interesting. But this is someone who wants to ask Sheldon about how is Jeff Mangels doing, which actually I'm curious about that myself.
I know he's having surgery in the not-too-distant future to take the steel rods out of his legs. He's walking pretty well. I don't know if he has a future in wrestling, at least as a wrestler. He's working, believe it or not, as a stockbroker.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I'll probably end up working for him.
So real quick, Sheldon, because it's actually a pretty interesting story. Why don't you tell everyone about, what happened to Jeff?
Jeff was working on an independent show in Connecticut, and he was doing a spot which was a moonsault off the top rope, and his opponent either missed him or walked away from him, and he landed and actually broke both his legs at the thigh, which is it's really hard to break your leg at the thigh, let alone both legs. He had steel rods implanted in both legs, and basically, for all intents and purposes, his career is over. And it's a real unfortunate thing because Jeff was someone who had a couple of tours to Japan for a small group over there. He was making a lot of progress as a wrestler, and while he wasn't a big guy, I really felt that he had a real future because he'd been hanging around wrestling as a photographer since he was about 6 or 7 years old. I met him when he was a little kid, and his mom was driving her to the matches. And here was someone who really had a lot more maturity for the business and a lot more knowledge of it than most people do because all he'd done was hang around the top people, be it in the dressing room taking their picture or out at a restaurant or whatever. So, for him to suffer such an injury so early in his career is really a tragic thing.
You know, at the McMahon trial, he sat next to me like every single day.
Yeah.
I thought, in '94, because he was like, so how old? 7 years ago, so he'd been like 12 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really nice guy.
Yep. Good kid.
Yeah.
Real good kid.
Let's go to Dan in Kansas City. Dan, what's up?
Hey, Dave. How are you?
Doing really good.
Hey, I want to talk about Lawler for a second.
Sure.
All right. I don't think he's going to be back, but I don't think it's because of Lawler not wanting to come back. I think it's because WWF doesn't want him back. And see, all right, well, my thinking on this is that Vince knew that if they released Stacy, they were going to release Jerry, right? So
you
would think so. All right.
You would think that you would think so, but you don't know for sure. But there's a good chance you're right. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I personally think he had to.
Lawler, by the way, Lawler thinks that as well.
Yeah. And so I don't think, no matter how much of an ego or attitude or whatever Stacy had backstage, that wouldn't be enough to lose your top color commentator for, So what I think is someone got in Vince's ear about this and said, hey, Jerry's a liability, we don't need him. And so instead of facing the backlash of directly firing Lawler, they did basically the slimy thing and fired Stacy. I mean, it's kind of a spineless and gutless thing, but
that's happened before in wrestling too.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's direct because, I don't know if you read about what Vince said, but he didn't even try to persuade Lawler to stay. He didn't tell him, hey, wait.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Nope, it was almost like he had a speech already planned, He just goes, well, thanks for everything you've done here. You've gone above and
beyond. He just has it memorized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because he's done it so many times. Yeah.
Sounded like he was exactly calm and collective, so I think that's maybe one scenario that could have happened.
But if Vince felt, let's just go with a theory, okay?
Okay.
Let's just say that Vince felt that Lawler was pressuring him by constantly coming up with angles for his wife. His wife wasn't appreciative, and he just, you know what I mean? And it could have been not as much he wanted to get rid of Lawler, but by that point he just didn't care. Because I'll just give you examples like with Bret Hart in '97. He didn't want to get rid of Bret Hart, but by the end he really didn't care. And that's why he could be so cold, because he didn't care, and that's why, he can be so cold in this situation as well.
Right. And I think, he's not going to get a lot of backlash if he was just to fire Stacy, because, she's a good-looking girl and everything, but she doesn't have all that much talent in the ring or on the mic. And so, if they fired Lawler, everyone would be like, well, wait, Lawler had talent. He was a great color commentator. He's been with your company since '93. So they decided to do it indirectly by firing Stacy.
Very well could be.
Thank you.
That makes plenty of sense because ultimately, certainly, you had to consider the possibility that if you fired Stacy, that it would be very tough for Lawler because it's gonna be tough for Lawler, and they know that they put him in a position where it's at best it's gonna make him real miserable, or he was gonna just leave.
Right.
So, certainly going in, I gotta believe that they thought of it as a possibility. Maybe they thought that he would yell and scream and go home. But, Owen Hart came back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, because he had to. And maybe they figured that because Jerry has to, in their mind, because there's nowhere else to go, that he will eventually come back. Maybe they think that. I don't know.
I also get the feeling that maybe JR has more of a, role in this than many think.
I mean, the reason I would doubt it is because, what does Lawler have to gain? I mean, they're personal friends.
Yeah.
Lawler was the one who, it's not like Lawler was the one who got him his job back in that it was Vince's decision, but Lawler was the one who campaigned for it when there was an opening, let's bring in JR.
Right.
So it's like, why would Lawler, if like Lawler and King were having personal problems working with each other, yeah, it's possible, but they weren't. And it was, it's like.
Also, what upside is there for Raw?
I just don't. It's like I don't see. Now Ross has to work with somebody else, and nobody knows who that's going to be.
Right.
And whoever it's going to be is probably going to be a drop off, unless Heyman shows up on Monday, which could happen. And if
Heenan
I'll tell you
or Cyrus?
What?
Heenan or Don Callis?
I don't think this Callis will come in, but they weren't. They've never been that fond of Callis. But if Heyman shows up on Monday, then I would say that it was all a plot, and they were all and a lot of people were in on it. If it's Taz, I think that they were not ready for it because, Taz isn't ready for that spot yet.
Right. Right.
Could be. We may see Heyman. If we see Heyman on Monday, then I'll say, it'll be real. If we do that, then it'll be real obvious what this is at that point.
What do you think of the likelihood of Heenan? He's not really doing anything.
Not Heenan. Heyman.
What's that?
Heenan hasn't even been. Heenan hadn't even been. I shouldn't say because I don't know as of today, but as of yesterday, Heenan had not even been called.
Oh.
And
okay.
when it came to whatever it was, when Heenan was let go by WCW, he called them. They called him back one time. They never even brought him in for a tryout. They at least brought Zbyszko in for a tryout and didn't hire him. Heenan called a couple more times and they never called him back. So they had no interest in Heenan, when they had a chance to get him. So I don't. They may now.
So you're talking about Heyman?
Heenan.
If Paul Heyman shows up Monday, that's what we're talking about.
If Paul Heyman shows up Monday, I think that there's a good chance this was all that Vince knew what he was doing exactly.
Well, yeah, if you look at the last week, and Lawler's time on the TV, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, they had Taz come in for the last half of every show. So something was going on before this.
No, but that made total sense though. They couldn't have Lawler go out there on the pay-per-view and on the TV show because of the situation. Lawler was going to be wrestling on those shows. Lawler booked those things himself, and it would have made no sense for him to wrestle. And on the pay-per-view, he couldn't come back out because he'd gotten beat, and he would have to. The only way he'd come out is do a promo, and they wouldn't want him to do a promo because that would detract from the Rock Kurt Angle match. He should be calling the Rock Kurt Angle match, so it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
The logic wasn't there for that, and Lawler was involved in booking all of that stuff. So that no. But if it's like I said, if it's Taz on Monday. I think that they were unaware because they didn't have someone ready. If it's Heyman on Monday, I think that we could look back and go, okay, that's what this was.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, well, thanks.
All right, let's go to Mark. Mark.
Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Very good.
First off, I know we're all sick about talking about Lawler, but you know what? I think we're missing the most obvious choice for color analyst or color commentator. That's you, Dave. It would be a perfect fit.
Brian would be better than me. Brian's much funnier
Dave,
than I am.
It's a smart audience. It's a much different business than it was 5 years ago. You would be the perfect counterpoint. You're articulate, witty, great insight.
Work right by Michael Cole.
That's right. And you could get that perplexed look that Michael Cole has over for 2 straight hours every Monday.
I get that look I had when I was on the air with Burt Randolph Sugar for that half hour on Court TV. When I was rolling my eyes at everything he said.
Oh, my gosh. Since we have Mr. Goldberg here being the historian of the business that he is, I think it's apropos to ask a historical question. And
tonight I want to go back to September 22nd, 1979, the Garden Backlund Race NWA WWF title unification match. Just curious, that was like the one MSG show in the 25-year contract, 30-year contract with Titan that was not shown on the network. And I was wondering what the politics are behind that besides the obvious fact of, I think Backlund won it on a DQ, but why not allow it in NWA territory, which WWF was, to air that footage?
I think they stayed away from showing the NWA champion whenever the NWA champion was in the on television. I think they did it more for political reasons rather than anything else.
Now, I saw on MSG Network, I remember as a kid seeing Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes.
And that was on 9 months before, but the unification
Right, I remember that match vividly. It wasn't even that good of a match either.
No, but the unification bout for some reason is part of the deal, and the big catcher here is that the WWF was a card-carrying, dues-paying member of the NWA at that point. Didn't they have the right to show that match?
I don't know the politics. That's 22 years ago.
No,
I never knew that match never aired. But now you bring it up. I actually never saw that match.
That was the only show that never aired.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. You know what? There was another show in the mid-'70s, okay, where they were supposed to have, and I don't know what the politics about this was either. There was a show at the Garden in the mid-'70s that didn't air on MSG, and Vince Jr. announced a show from the Omni because I remember seeing. It's like Mr. Wrestling 2 and Jay Strongbow and all those guys on a tape, and I never knew what it was. So I know there was another show, but I don't know what the story was as far as that show goes.